So today we're doing two songs that are addressed to parents slash kids. Teach Your Children by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and From Deja Vu in 1970, and Hey Young World by Slick Rick, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think. I think that's a good pairing. I love the Slick Rick song. I don't know much about it. I don't know much about the context. So I look forward to learning some about that. So where are you going to start with this? You want to start with Slick Rick, or you want to start with Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young?
Um, I think we can start with the Slick Rick side. I think it's
Okay.
probably a little bit easier to explain, and out of respect for Mr. Crosby, let him back clean up today. So
Okay.
if things furl on the detail side, it can kind of more unfurl it its way. Um, Hey Young World is a sneaky classic hip hop record.
Okay.
And when I say that, it might be more, it's one of those records that might be more influential in the MC community
Hmm.
than it is in the actual lexicon of
Okay.
classic hip hop songs or even classic Slick Rick songs. If you were familiar with this album, which I know you are now, The Greatest
Yeah,
Adventures of Slick
I
Rick,
am now. Yes.
this is probably the fourth biggest song off the album.
Okay.
So, Children's Story, Mona Lisa, and Teenage Love, which was actually the original first single, are
Okay.
all bigger records and I believe bigger chart topping records.
Hmm.
This might be the best record on the album.
I love this song. That's one of my notes. I like this song. Maybe it's hip hop sacrilege. I like this song better than Children's Story. Like it's
I no.
personal. Like that's my personal taste. That's not like I'm
So
not saying
let's
it's more
go.
important or anything, but like
So what,
I do like it better.
so what you're saying is not sacrilege. I think the three best songs on the Greatest Event, which is still one of the best rap albums ever made, arguably still one of the 20 best rap albums ever made. No, if you said "Hey Young World" was the best song on this album, you would not be wrong. There are people like me and
Mhm.
Mike B who actually echo those sentiments. We
Okay.
prefer "Hey Young World" to "Children's Story." Now, in fairness to "Children's Story," it has been
Hmm.
so played, so
Yeah.
used, so rehashed, so flipped that could have something to do with it. But Hey Young World is the gem of this album.
Hmm.
He's a very a young Slick Rick is a very foul and raunchy man. Like I'm sure you're familiar from listening to this album now. Well, there are stories in here that, on a comedic level, speak about STDs inside of a
Hmm.
woman's vagina, or speaks about what would be about what would be the legitimate about sodomization in
Hmm.
prison. You
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
about a wife providing a mailman with fellatio while the
Yes.
husband is at work. So,
Right.
so this is some of the content and subject matter that, quite frankly, makes this album innovative and brilliant. But what makes him brilliant and what gives this album a roundabout feel is that you find out on Hey Young World that, and on Teenage Love to Agree, that this guy has the ability to verse and to tell a story and to talk to you about any topic. And
Yeah.
this is what I would like to call a societal ills record for hip hop,
Okay.
which is kind of rare for the time. This is
All right.
this is hip hop when it had become a big. This is this is when the machismo and
Yeah.
the tougher than leather and the guys with the big gold chains and the dope ropes and the serious face and the black fist and the black power and the stone cold persona comes to life and comes to popularity. So Slick Rick has a humor to him, and on this record, a vulnerability that you just don't get out of other MCs around the time. Like Chuck D's not talking like this with his messages.
Hmm.
Chuck D's messages is like, "Why are you mad at us? Why don't you like Farrakhan? We should burn this bitch down."
Yeah.
Slick Rick is more like talking to the. I think he's talking to the parents and
Hmm.
talking to the kids on
I
here.
agree. I agree.
And it's one of the few records where it's like, well, he doesn't curse on this record, which he has a penchant for doing.
Yes.
And the comedic value has been replaced with an intrinsic, like, moral compass.
Yeah. This is a serious record. Not like it doesn't feel angry serious, but it is like sincere, I guess is the word.
And in style wise, understand that he's doing what he does best. Well, he has his alter ego,
Hmm.
MC Ricky D, who he uses a slightly different vocal pitch for. Well, they're on this record together, so he's doing the back and forth with himself, which
Right.
he made.
Hmm.
And but usually, like literally 9 times out of 10, when he evokes MC Ricky D, he's evoking the comedic side of things.
Right.
Like MC Ricky is there to provide levity to a degree, to
Hmm.
even to an already humorous guy.
Okay.
Mona Lisa is a prime example,
Mm.
of him
Yeah.
using MC Ricky D in comedic fashion. What's
Hmm.
your name? Son, MC Ricky D, but sorry, so hard I had to say to Mona Lisa. I'm sorry, I know there's no class. Please let me tell you about your past. Like that guy's kind of entertaining and kind
Hmm.
of like playful. He's not
Yeah.
the MC Ricky D that's popping up on this record on the back and forth. It's almost like his conscience talking to his heart.
Okay.
You
That
know,
makes sense.
mind is talking to the heart on this record,
Hmm.
and it makes for a really beautiful moment. And it spawned, in my opinion, spawned album titles such as "The World Is Yours" by Scarface,
Right.
uh, song "The
The
World
world
Is
is
Yours"
yours.
by Nash, which I mean everybody who knows me knows. Well, that's my favorite hip hop song and what made me a lifelong hip hop fan.
Hmm.
So, as a lifelong hip hop fan that became a lifelong hip hop fan because of the song "The World Is Yours," imagine the way that I smiled the first time I really heard "Hey Young World." You know,
It's one of those like, oh, oh, okay.
and that's his favorite MC. So it's like,
Hmm.
oh, well, it all makes sense now. So there's a little bit of hip hop history, and this is the thing about Slick Rick. Well, he has the largest family tree.
Okay.
Like if you're doing a lineage, so many people spin off of his lineage because so many people have taken things from him, from Scarface to Snoop Dogg to Nas to Jay. Like everybody, he has the largest family tree. He's our actually most charismatic MC.
Okay.
And part of this record comes off so well is that when your most charismatic MC becomes serious, well, you can still hear that he's a great MC and songwriter.
Hmm.
So I think this is important to the greatness of Slick Rick and his catalog in terms of his respectability as an MC, because too often he's just looked at as the storyteller, the comedian, the
Hmm.
guy with the dual voices. No, this
And
is
the
a
eye
guy that
patch. Yeah, sure.
the eye patch. Like there's the jewelry, the ballot, the Kangos. There's so many things that come with Slick Rick that you forget. It's like no, if he was just rapping and rapping seriously, he's still better than all these guys too. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. My favorite part is when he goes, "Times have changed, and it's cool to look bummy and be a dumb dummy and disrespect your mommy." Like he can say that. He's getting away with that because of the British accent. But he's speaking to the crap epidemic and how things have changed in the neighborhood that he grew up in. He's from the Bronx, by way
Okay.
of England, of course.
Right.
And so this record is speaking how the crack epidemic has also affected Black culture. He's talking about how things have changed, you know, pretty much.
Hmm.
You know, what's that he says? And if you're over 18, I wish you'd act like an adult. Don't live in a world of hate, hate, hate. Pull yourself together and get yourself straight. Men don't steal. Hey, most don't borrow. And if you smoke crack, your kids will smoke crack tomorrow. That's
Hmm.
where you can tell that the epidemic is taking place. He's talking about society, like where the crack epidemic has really taken his neighborhood and kind of ravaged it some. And he's kind of speaking to the young generation that he sees selling crack, but he's also talking to the parents that have allowed it to happen. That's what I mean about it. It's very
Exactly.
beautiful. It is very touching without him coming. And think about this: he might be our most arrogant rapper too. He doesn't come off as condescending at all on this.
No. If you were picking a negative term for any of it, it would be cheesy. I mean, it comes off kind of.
It's almost
But he pulls it off though. Like it's not. It doesn't feel that way. But that's the closest
it
critique I
feels
can get. Like it doesn't feel
as it's necessary. That's why you don't feel
right.
that way. Because
Exactly.
if you know anything about the time in Black culture, if you know anything about the time in hip hop, it's like, well, that record is more of a necessity for us
Mhm.
than a necessity for him to make. He already has Children's Story and Teenage Love and Mona Lisa
Right.
on this album. He already has all time great records. He already has all time great singles. He don't need this record. We need this record. And
Oh,
I
okay.
think he made it with that intent. That's why it's so special to me. It's like, oh, he didn't need to make that record. Like
That's
this is
one
the
of the
guy.
similarities between the two songs we're covering today, too. We'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, like
Yes, I heard that immediately. I was like, oh, they don't have to make a record like this.
no,
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 they're known for so many other things.
they're all made men at this point, like every single one of them already.
And so one of the
But
beautiful things about a record is like when one of your biggest stars will just speak up about the things that are going on in the community. I
hmm
mean, I think we all gravitate towards those things. So you feeling that way about this song is totally justified. Every time it comes on, it makes me feel a certain type of way, but in a positive way.
yeah, it makes me smile to listen to. Like it's one of those
Yeah.
things. Like, and I didn't obviously didn't grow up with this song, but like the first time I heard it, I mean, when I listened to all the whole record and the whole album, I caught it a little bit, like enough to recognize that this is the one that you said Nas pulled "Hate the World Is Yours" from, but
Mhm.
didn't like pay attention to it that closely. But I've listened to it on the loop the last 2 or 3 days or whatever, and it just makes me smile when it comes on.